buying a Toyota Tacoma or a Toyota Tundra? Things to consider. Well, good morning, everyone. How are you today? Pretty good here. So are you looking to buy a Toyota Tacoma or a Toyota Tundra? Well, here's a few things to consider. You know, I've had both. I've had a couple of Tundras. I've had, 7 maybe Tacomas. I have a problem. Anyway, so I thought I'd just run through a few things maybe to consider if you're looking at buying a Tundra or a Tacoma. First of all, obviously is cost, right? I mean, they do differ a bit, but I gotta tell you, depending on what trim level you get, there's really not a huge difference. You know, they're almost the same depending on what model or trim or options you add. You know, I went out to the Toyota site and I built a Tacoma real quickly. It was a TRD off-road and I added a bunch of stuff to it, you know, and I came up with a price of $45,600. Now, this would be the MSRP before any negotiating or tax or any of that kind of stuff. I did the same for the Tundra, but to be honest, I did go ahead and just look at a more base model. I built a limited version. It was the Crewmax with just four-wheel drive. Came up with $47,035. So for under $2,000, granted, you're going to lose some of the options like what I added to my Tacoma that I built, but you're not that far off. You could step up to the Tundra for the bigger size, bigger motor, for not that much more money. And let's face it, when you're talking about almost $50,000 anyway, what's a couple thousand, right? Next up, what are you going to do with it? You know, are you going to use it for hauling stuff? Are you using it for business? Can you write off some of that cost? Do you need the extra space to be able to haul stuff? I mean, if you're hauling stuff all the time, it'd be much better to have a bigger bed, right? Than trying to jam everything into that shorter bed on the Tacoma. Just something else to think about. Do you have room for it? You know, I've told this story before on the channel. I looked at a Tundra years ago, and I was concerned that it wouldn't fit in my garage at my house, right? Because that was a primary thing for me. Whatever vehicle I bought had to fit in my garage. I still have that little pet peeve today, right? So I brought it home, and those were in the days when the dealer just had to come with me. So I loaded the dealer up in the truck, the salesperson, and we drove to my house. We pulled it in the garage, and lo and behold, it hung out about 1.5 feet out of my garage. I couldn't shut the door. And that was with the truck about this far from the wall. So that was a deal killer right there for me. That Tundra would not fit, so I wasn't interested. And I think that might have been my first Tacoma, actually. I think that's when I decided that I could only have a mid-sized truck because it just wouldn't fit in the garage that I had at the time. What about outside? If you're gonna park it outside, do you have room in your driveway? Are you gonna be cramped all the time? If you're gonna park in the street, is there room for it out there? You know, our car's gonna be driving right up against it, going up and down the street. You run the chance of getting it scraped, of getting it hit, and that's gonna grind on you after a while, right? Are you always gonna have to be worried about it sitting out there? You don't wanna have to do that. Now, the Tundra is big, right? What about driving that thing? What about dealing with it on a daily basis? You know, if you work in an area that's tight, that's congested, you're gonna have to maneuver that thing around. You're gonna have to put it in parking spaces where other people might be right up on top of you. And if you're like me and you worry about door dings and dents and scrapes and things like that, it's gonna bug you after a while. You're always gonna be worrying about that truck. Do you really wanna do that? I know I don't. Next up, fuel economy. You know, the elephant in the room, the thing that nobody ever wants to talk about but comes up all the time. And I love the canned response, right? It's a truck. It's not supposed to get good mileage. You should have bought a Prius. Yeah. When it comes right down to it, obviously it's important because if it wasn't, we wouldn't talk about it all the time. The Tundra gets horrible gas mileage. You know, it's big, it's heavy, it's got the V8, if you opt for that option, and it likes to drink gas. Now, it's not to say that the Tacoma is that much better, but it is better. So it's going to cost you in the end less money to drive the Tacoma. So if that matters to you and you're not one of these, it's a truck and who cares kind of people, then it's something else to consider. Next up, and this one is kind of funny. Now this one, if you're looking to buy either a Toyota Tacoma or a Toyota Tundra, might really matter to you, and that is perception. I have heard this sporadically on the channel. I got a comment today about this. Somebody said that I should get rid of that little Tacoma and buy a man's truck, right? A man's truck. Well, I gave my canned response was that, you know, real men don't measure their level of masculinity by the truck that they drive. But anyway, it obviously matters to some people. And if it matters to you, you know, let's say you buy the Tacoma and you get it home and you're going to get razzed by some people, obviously, because that's just the way it is. And if that matters to you, sooner or later, it might matter enough that you just can't stand it anymore. And you got to go trade that Tacoma in for a Tundra, right? Now that's going to cost you money. You're going to take a hit when you take that thing in after 6 months or a year or whatever to trade it in. So if that's important and perception is a big deal to you, then obviously you probably ought to tip the scale a little bit more towards the Tundra side. Anyway, it really comes down to personal preference and what works for you, right? Don't be swayed. Don't let other people determine what you spend your money on, what truck you drive. Get what works for you. Get what you like. Get what is going to satisfy your needs. After all, you're going to be the one that's driving it, right? You're the one that's paying for it. In the end, when you go home, it's only the voices in your head that you have to listen to. Also, one other quick thing to consider, are there going to be other people driving the truck? You know, if your significant other is not comfortable driving a big, giant, full-size truck, and let's face it, the Tundra's huge. It may be the biggest truck out there right now, so you have to be cognizant of that. If your significant other is going to be driving it and they're not comfortable, you know, you don't want to have to worry about them out there on the road, right? And if that doesn't concern you, then you also might worry about insurance claims. You know, if they're not comfortable and they're out there backing into stuff, you know, pulling out of a parking lot, that's going to raise your insurance rates or cost you money out of pocket. So again, just another little thing to consider if you're trying to determine whether you're going to buy a Toyota Tacoma or a Toyota Tundra. Anyway, leave a comment down below. Let me know, have you ever bought one or the other and then regretted it and actually went back in and went the other way? Either traded your Tacoma in for a Tundra or vice versa? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, if you haven't before and you're interested, check out my other channel. It is RobMotive JT, all about my 2020 Jeep Gladiator. Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.